Morris, Mr. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Fogg.
Here.
Ms. Flynn Harris, Ms. Nichols, Mr. Rocco, Mr. Slocum.
Here.
Mr. Talbot.
Here.
And Mr. Bellaverde.
Here.
We do have a quorum of the council present.
If we could rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, all. Just as a point of information, we're going to start with the presentations in reverse order this evening. We're going to begin with cultural services. I don't particularly care what order they come through on. We start with library. If you want to start with the library, I'm happy to do that. But before we do any of that, Michael, do you have any preamble information you want to share?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Arnett handed out a revised schedule yet again. Sorry. We
Is it
had
in
it.
this packet?
It's right on top. You should have it.
It's the one with the
It's
dates.
this one with the yellow
Oh,
one?
I didn't, okay.
It's that one.
Thank you.
Here, Marilyn.
I got it, Ms. Tom. Okay, Mr. Rocco.
Anyway,
Thank you.
we're sorry. We had a conflict on April 5th with the Public Works Department. And so we were asking if we could move that meeting to either the 2nd or the 4th, depending upon people's availability.
That's actually a meeting date change.
Yes, it is.
And that's the one that takes us to Holy Thursday.
Yeah, no, this week takes us to Holy Thursday. Yeah,
Okay.
we have tonight, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you had already changed.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
the other one? I wasn't.
This is Public Works.
Which
It
is
was
what?
originally scheduled for April 5th,
Oh. okay.
which was a Thursday. And
Oh,
I
okay.
later found out that they have a conflict, which I neglected to check.
Okay.
And so we were hoping to move it to either the 2nd or the 4th. Neither of those were on your calendar to begin with, so they might be conflicts for people, I don't know.
So we can get back to you on that?
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah, I will. I know that I can't say right now.
No, okay, all right. And then we'll remind you on Wednesday.
Yeah, because that's not that far off.
Yeah, okay,
It's next week.
It's next Monday.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then just for sake of following along tonight, we
Mhm.
got a lot of handouts.
Mhm.
And so Arnett came up with this very creative idea. I mean, not only the color
Oh,
code.
she's using salmon.
No, she's using pink. but
Okay.
Thank you,
anyway.
Mr. Slocum, I appreciate that.
Okay, anyway, whatever the color is, it's different from white. And just to try to make it easier,
Oh,
you
nice.
can see that there's multiple pages that you're gonna have to reference for some of these documents. For example, the town attorney is a good example. We have, obviously, the page in the budget that we go to, which is page 7, and then the decision packages, which are in 2 to 4 in the handouts, okay? So the first column down are the handouts, so that's everything that's in front of you, pages 1 to 30. And then for reference in your books, you go to the far 2 right columns, and since some of the budgets don't have specific line item pages, that's why things like probate and town attorney and town council don't have a corresponding page in the summary book. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that what we'll do with this, each time we come to a meeting, we'll try to bring back answers to questions that were asked at previous meetings. There were some questions asked that we didn't bring back tonight only because they're more topical for the night that the department comes. Well, you had a few questions on human services relative to the seniors, how many people are living in not senior housing, but condominiums and so on, and not in standalone residential houses. And then we also had a question on the grants, and I think there was a third question on human services. Michelle's going to be presenting Thursday night. She's going to bring all that information then. There were questions about the ED 001, which is the education form that represents all the indirect costs associated with all the time we spend in support of their efforts. And we'll be bringing that on Tuesday when the Board of Education comes so that they can explain it in more detail. So I didn't want you to think that we forgot about any of that stuff. We just thought it'd be more sensible to have it on a night when a presenter's here who can explain it in more detail. But Paul, you did have a question on delinquent tax accounts, and that's the first item here. So Jim put together a memo, and if we could just go over that, and then we'll turn it over to the library portion of this. Jim, wherever you are, did you want to make a summary explanation of this?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do this off the top of my head because I don't have a memo in front of me, but it's 162 accounts. that-
It's right, it's the
Gotcha.
first page in that handout.
Sorry. I'm sorry, 182 delinquent properties as of, I guess, a couple of weeks ago when we did the analysis. If you recall, we do lien assignments. 40 of the properties that are in that 182 were involved in prior lien assignments. And the way that works with the lien assignments is until you are current with your taxes, you stay with the assignee. So there's 40 of those that are still under collection, so to speak, with the assignee. We're planning on putting another 62 of those 182 on this year's assignment. Of course, there's still a few weeks to collect on those, so the number could come down. And then the balance, you know, we do put a lien on them, but it's not through that formal process, lien assignment. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. That was just to give you an idea of how many delinquent properties we have.
Right.
And that's about it.
Sure. Who's the assignee? Is that the company
Yes.
that we've hired to?
Yes.
And how do they go about collecting on the lien? Do they work it out with the homeowners?
They work it out with the homeowners.
Do they go on payment plans or?
Yeah. Payment, I think that's typically what they do. You know, we haven't had anybody recently that's been foreclosed upon that I'm aware of.
Okay, so they work it on and it.
Absolutely,
legally
yeah.
work, and,
I
okay.
think that's one reason why this has been such a successful program in part, is that, you know, they haven't laid the hammer down and put these people out.
Well, one of the conditions in the bid specs makes it clear that we want them to wait at least a year before they even begin to think about foreclosure and to work with us before they initiate it. So there's some conditions in that contract that make it clear that we don't want them to come in and just, you know, unilaterally foreclose
So
on
they
the
can
property.
pay on it if they agree to a payment plan. They can keep paying on that for multiple years as
Yeah.
long as they keep up the terms of
Yeah.
their agreement.
Yeah,
Because the town's basically been paid.
yeah, we've been paid.
We've been
So what they
covered,
work out,
plus
what
a
the-
premium.
What
What a
they work,
premium.
what they
Right.
work out is between them and the, you know, the payment company.
Paul, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate the
so now we'll come back to Jim when it's his time, and we'll start with the library.
We'll start with the
We're all clear?
library. You see where the pages are?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, and then I'll turn it over to Ramona. This budget is going up by about a little over 5%, or $89,600, and it's primarily to restore the vacant positions that were frozen throughout this year. And I'll let Ramona get into the details of that. If not for that, it would really be a maintenance budget. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that in addition to this budget, this year going down by about $20,451, Ramona, on top of that, the library took about a $39,000 hit. If you were to look in the estimated expenditures, you'll see that their spending is going to be about $39,000 less than their budget. And that was a further imposition by me because of the revenue shortfall from the state. And so she's had to take a second hit. And so what she ends up with really is an actual expenditure of about $59,000 less than what she had almost 2 years ago.
And that $39,000 hit that they absorbed after our budget had to do with staff as well. They were able to hold that.
Did have to do with
And then
staff,
the suspension
yeah.
of summer hours at the.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So her cut in total really was $59,000, and her budget for this year is actually well below what it was in fiscal 16, when it was $1,725,000, and this year will end up being about $1,701,000. So I just wanted to frame
What's that
that.
number again, Mike?
She's gonna, and
2016?
her 2016 budget was $1,725,727. And at the end of this year, you can see her estimated expenditures are $1,701,447. So she's had to absorb a lot of hits and changes, and she's been a good soldier, and I thank her for that. And in spite of that, she's made things work as well as they
But
can.
there was some evidence for that there was some justification, I'm assuming, which you can explain along the way. I don't want to cut you short here, Ramona, but in 2016, to have the budget of 1,725, 727, to go down, I'm assuming there were some savings brought about through some of our program type of changes?
Well, we did have a couple, at least one staff retirement of a management position and hired a new person in at a lower step.
Right. But we weren't saying, oh, we were experiencing some of the savings because of all of our changes with the way we check books in. It wasn't any of those justifications for any of this?
That's been more of a gradual savings that we've seen in terms of, and one of the things that I can speak to tonight is basically the effect of outsourcing some of the operations of the library, either to patrons or to private companies, and the costs and benefits of doing that, which we weigh very carefully. We have been quote-unquote outsourcing about 60% of our checkout functions to the patrons since 2012, so for about 6 years now, through self-checkouts, and that's been very successful. We also outsource things like the processing of materials.
But when you say outsourcing, when you're leaving something up to the customer, that's not an outsource, that's a savings.
It is a savings, because then when your demand goes up, that demand is met by the customer instead of having to hire more staff
Right.
to meet that demand.
Yep.
So while our demand and our business has gone on an upward trend over the last 10, 12, 13 years,
Right.
our staffing, as you've seen the chart that I
Right.
handed out recently, our staffing has stayed level. And
Right.
that's one of the ways that we have.
Right. And that was one of the sales pitches and reasonable sales pitches for all those changes.
Mhm.
I just don't want to lose sight of that. I just
Yep,
wanted to
yep,
get.
we have dealt with a lot of the demand by.
Because you've been actually
self-check.
forward-thinking and forward-moving and helped lead the way on some of these savings, which I think is important to recognize.
It has helped us cope with increased demand, for sure,
Right.
without increasing the staff too
Right.
much. So,
Thank you for that. Now you can have the floor for your budget.
okay. So basically, as Michael said, what I am requesting for the fiscal 19 budget is the restoration of most of our staff positions that have been either cut or frozen in the last year or so. Of course, you'll recall that in last year's budget deliberations, one of our we had two 25-hour positions that were vacant at the time. Bad news for us, vacant positions are targeted. We had a tough budget situation, and the library just happened to have a couple of vacant positions. So one of those positions was eliminated, and one was frozen for the duration of the current fiscal year. So while I am asking for the frozen position to be reinstated in the coming fiscal year, I understand that that other 25-hour position is gone. So even if we are to get this 25-hour position reinstated, and of course the frozen 15-hour clerk position, which we discussed a few weeks ago, quote-unquote thawed, will still be nearly up to where we used to be in terms of staffing. We, as Michael said, we've already achieved about $40,000. It'll be about $40,000 in savings this fiscal year. And I will say that our administrative staff have been stepping up and working more public service and programming hours, and that has been to a great extent to the detriment of a lot of administrative tasks that have kind of gone by the wayside. Just a little bit of information about the clerk position. That was a position that was actually funded. It was authorized and funded this fiscal year, but it was vacated in the summer of 2017. And of course, the state budget situation being what it was back then, at that time, it was frozen and I was not allowed to fill that. And that on top of the additional vacancies that we had last summer caused us not to be able to staff the building on summer Saturdays. And the trend being what it is, we were down about 100 hours of staff time a year ago. As going into the summer, we're going to be down about 95 hours of staff time going into this summer, so it's really not looking good for this summer either. If we were to get our positions back up to the 25-hour senior library associate position funded and the 15-hour clerk position funded, we would have a chance of being able to be open Saturdays in the summer of 2019. Going through the memo on page 22, I know you've all read it because we met about the frozen library clerk position. But I will reiterate that the library is basically at the same number of full-time equivalent staff we were at in 2005 when I came here as library director. And if you look through the charts later on in the memo, you'll see that our full-time equivalent staff scheduled per hour is down about 13%, 13.3% since 2005. The number of library usages, so that's circulation, reference questions, program attendance, door count, website hits, all sorts of indicators. Those added up, those are all up about 67% per full-time equivalent. Our hours open per year are up 17%. Our program attendance has skyrocketed to 276% higher than it was 13 years ago. And our library cost per usage, adjusted for inflation, is down significantly. It's down by about 30%. So we are very efficient. As Tim mentioned, we've done a lot with technology. We've done a lot internally with what's called, if you're familiar with lean process improvement, that's a credit to Mary DeTillo, who is our assistant director. She's in the back there. Mary basically goes through every department and looks at workflows, looks at the steps that are taken to accomplish work, and she makes it as efficient as possible. And I don't know what we would do without her. We have gotten rid of so many unnecessary processes and rework. She can tell you all the details of it, but in terms of our cataloging and processing and other departments, it's much, much more efficient than it used to be. And again, that has helped us to hold the line in terms of staffing while dealing with increased demand. So I can go into the decision packages right now. If we do, I'd prefer to start with the Senior Library Associate decision package, which is on page 28, since we're talking about staff anyway. When we had the staffing cuts a year ago, and it became very clear, number one, we wouldn't be able to be open Saturdays in the summer, but also number two, the two positions that were either eliminated or frozen at the time were not only public service positions, but they also did spend half of their time working on those cataloging and processing functions. And the person who was in this particular position that I want to fund she was very efficient. We lost her, she moved to Arizona, as we would all like to do. And we realized, okay, we don't have anyone else who can do this in-house. There's no more bodies. If we're gonna stay open any semblance of hours and have people at the desks, we're gonna have to outsource some of this, okay? So we've outsourced things in the past, the self-checkout, we've outsourced some of the stickering on the books and the book covering. We'll use the same company that does our barcodes and our stickers and our book covers, and we'll have them do the cataloging and put the catalog records into our catalog so the patrons can look up the books. And we'll have them help us, we'll integrate it into our software system, and we'll have all the invoicing tied in together, and it's gonna be great. And it's only, $4 a book. Hasn't been great. It's been an unbelievable amount of work for staff. My head of materials management, Sandy Hernandez, she's a management level employee, spends, I want to say, sometimes a third of her hours per week reworking things that have to be data that has to be massaged, orders that have to be fixed, data that has to be put in just the right place, not to mention my administrative assistant who has had a nightmare dealing with all of the invoicing issues. It just goes on and on and on. And Lucas Franklin, who's the head of Children's Services, has been involved in this. It has not been the outsourcing success that we would hope for. And to boot, it costs several dollars per item to have the privilege of this service. So in looking at this, the other negative aspect of this is that this is money that comes directly out of our book budget. So in order to pay for this, we lose about 25 to 30% of our book purchasing power over the course of a year.
Dollars, do you know what that is?
It's upwards of $60,000 a
Okay.
year. So if we did this for every single item that went into the collection, worst case scenario would be about $60,000 a year out of our $213,000 book budget.
We tied into a vendor on this, and
Yes,
it's just a
you're tied
vendor
into
issue?
Yep, you're tied into a vendor. In this instance, it's Baker and Taylor because we get the vast majority of our books and materials from Baker and Taylor. They have to be the ones to give us the catalog records and all of the data. So there's no other vendor that can do this. It has not been a positive experience or the best use of the town's money at all. In my opinion, I've been doing this for 13 years now. The most efficient and effective way to do this is to hire this staff member, this 25-hour staff member who would spend some of their time cataloging, some of their hours on the desk, and it would have the added benefit of allowing us to, ideally, to be open on Saturdays in the summer as well, if we're up to full staff.
And you would, is it fair to say you're paying for some of that with some savings because you're not paying the company to do this? You're not gonna give them $4 a book to do something they're not doing well.
Correct. So we would stop doing that. We would stop doing this and we would go back. We pay about, it's $1.53, $1.56 per item for the physical processing. So labels and barcodes, RFID tags, spine labels, that kind of thing.
That's good.
The protective Mylar cover, but not the actual data management of it. That's the part that really hasn't worked and that we've been trying for almost a year to make it work. And it's a huge waste of staff time. So in my opinion, hiring this 25-hour position and buying the 15-hour clerk would get us to the point where we would be able to be back up to full
And this is
service.
really any qualified individual to take this position could do this better than this company.
In my
You're
opinion,
basically
yes,
saying.
and I think
So
that
it's not like-
I think that Mary and Deb would agree, because they deal more with the details and the ins and outs of it on a day-to-day basis than I do. I hear about it, but they are on the phone with the vendor. They are literally sitting there and reworking 40-page documents on the computer because of the inadequate quality of data that we're getting from the vendor. So when you handle materials in-house, when our person left and moved to Arizona, who had been doing this, we had a 24-hour turnaround time on materials coming into the library and going out to the shelf. And this has really expanded it outward, and we have more of a delay getting materials onto the shelf because they come in and the records just aren't right, or the labels aren't right, or something is wrong. They sent the wrong thing, they sent too many copies, they did this, they did that. And then my staff has to clean it up. It's a huge time suck. And it's a waste of time and money. A person in-house who is well-trained could do all of this.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that aspect of the conversation?
So Ramona, the budget reflects then a savings somewhere presumably of the 60, but the plus 47.2
Correct.
is
Right.
in the personnel.
Exactly. So the 60,000 would not have to be spent out of the book budget to pay for these outsourced services instead.
Have you already taken that out of here though?
No, because you're buying books, so it's not gone.
Well, so what's happening right now is we are paying out of our regular book budget. We haven't increased the book budget to accommodate this because we didn't.
Okay.
The
Right,
book
so
budget's
we have-
Gotcha.
the book budget's gone up by 5,000 just for purposes of materials.
Mhm.
But if the positions weren't funded, then I would have put the $60,000 in the program materials line in addition to the 218 or whatever is
Right.
Got
there
it.
now.
Right.
Okay.
Just to keep us at the current level of purchasing power for books that we are at now. Because we can buy, it's about 16,000 items a year, give or take, that we're able to put into the collection. So right now, our $218,000 book budget gets us 16
Yeah.
or 17,000.
Okay.
So to get that same number of books plus the data and the cataloging would be an extra $60,000, but it would still only be 17,000 items.
So are we saving the spread then, or we're saving the 60,000?
It's less expensive to hire the person and have them do the work in-house than it is to outsource it. And it's better work, because it's $60,000, it's $4 times 16,000 items a year to have the outsourcing, as opposed to hiring a person and doing it in-house. Not to mention the additional public service hours that we'd be able to accommodate if we're up to full staff. And, you know, in your decision package, I mentioned the fact that right now, the staff are stretched to the point where it's not a sustainable model or workflow in terms of having my staff spend all of this time on back office tasks and managing this bad data and whatnot, as opposed to doing outreach programs and, you know, being able to, visit the senior center and do homebound visits to the elderly and whatnot. If I have to have people doing all of this stuff in-house behind the scenes, I can't have them outside, either doing programs at the library or outside the library. So, much more efficient to hire the person or people. Yeah.
So with this, if you have the senior library associate and potentially saving $60,000 a year, how much of their time, in a week, whatever, would be going towards the cataloging versus them having free time to do other services that the in-house person could do?
So it's about half and half, and Deb, you can tell me what Jen used to work.
I used to, out of 25 hours, she probably spent maybe 13 to 15 hours in back office tasks. And then her presence on the public service desk then freed up other people. That position doesn't do outreach, but it frees up other people to do.
So about 2/3 of their time would be on, give or take, on this type of cataloging and other back office things.
Right.
Freeing them about 1/3 of their time to be doing other things. And
Typically-
freeing up other
right,
people's time to
right.
do other things.
Exactly. So they would spend time on, say, the welcome desk or the children's desk, whatever they're best suited to. And that would allow other staff who, it is in their job description, for instance, our outreach librarian, to be able to, instead of being on the desk, if we need someone to cover the desks, instead of being on the desk, that person would be able to go out to, park or to the senior center or to do programs in the library. Technology help, very, very popular program at the library as well, especially with seniors. So again, I have to get the work done. I need to get the materials on the shelf, but this is not the most efficient way to do it. And we're going to, in the long run, lose out on staff time to be able to go and do those programs.
And as a follow-up to that, if you're saying this is coming from your book fund, would that also then free up, would this then free up more money to buy more materials rather than use it to pay this vendor to do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this current year that we're in, we've got the same book budget, I believe, the same book budget we had last year, but a big chunk of that has to go just towards this.
About a quarter?
This service.
So it was 200 and something?
Oh, it's
We-
two,
I said it was
I think
60,000.
it was 218.
Yeah, 218 and 278, it's on page,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more than a person. That's more than
Yeah.
a
It
person
is.
costs.
It is. I'd rather have the person.
Well,
It's the best choice for this
I
library.
guess my other question, I'm sorry.
No, that was, I just wanted to find out if that's also, not only is it gonna free up the cost for this, but it would then also free up more money
Right.
for buying materials as well.
My other question has to do more, maybe it has nothing to do with this issue, but if we have a vendor who's supplying us with the books, is that a bid process, or have they just been in our library for 25 years and that's it?
Right, so we go through the Connecticut Library Consortium for collective purchasing for books, and that's something that the town authorizes every year.
So it's just something we've done, they're probably the only player in town, or one of two?
It is one of a couple, but they offer the best deal and best
Okay.
selection. It's
And
about
this
a-
just happens to be a service they can provide just badly, and they could provide it badly to every town?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I just wanted to hear that concisely stated.
We have been very unhappy with this service.
Okay.
And you know me, you've known me for 13 years. I'm all about making things simple and using technology where we can and having my people outward facing instead of in the back office. But in this instance, this is not the best way to do it.
This is a little like the problem Facebook is having. Okay, fine.
Let's not go there. But
Wow.
it's not quite as bad as the problem Facebook is
But
having.
it's a technology issue.
Uh,
So, okay, is there anything else to add to your conversation here? The other positions you want to talk about, or anything else, or we kind of
So
covered it?
really, to cover the staffing issues, I need to thaw the 15-hour clerk position and to authorize the hiring of the 25-hour senior library associate.
And just as a reminder, Ramona did submit a request to unfreeze the library clerk's position, came through budget, and then the council decided last week
Right.
to refer it back to this committee for discussion with each of the department
Right.
heads as they came in. So that's
Right.
something that's on the table for tonight as well. The backup is part of all of the information that we assembled for you.
And I think the cost, at this point, the cost for the remainder of the year, if we were to hire that clerk in next week, would be about $3,000
Right. This is,
this fiscal year.
but this still puts your summer hours in jeopardy.
We're not gonna have
You're not
anyone
gonna
in
have
place.
summer hours, right.
Even if you end up doing a lot of backfilling.
Right.
Assuming you advertise the position and an in-house person gets it in the
Right.
library, then you're backfilling that position. You're not up to full staff right away just
Right.
because you
Understood.
advertise the position.
Understood.
So, and we do have, as I mentioned at the budget committee meeting a few weeks ago, we have a full-time position that is probably going to be vacated this May, but that person hasn't officially given it this.
You want to talk about the Sunday hours?
Sunday hours, I put that in as a decision package because that's a discrete program that is funded separately in the budget. So same as it's been for 10 or so years now, it's about $1,000 a Sunday. Extraordinarily popular with the public. Weekend and evening hours are very popular with the public. Deb Rutter has been running the Sunday concert series this year. We routinely get 120, 130, 140 people at our winter Sunday concerts, which we've been doing at the library for about 40 years now.
Yeah.
It's been about 40 years.
So is it primarily an event day? It's not just a meeting day? Sunday serves as sort of that kind of...
It has a different feel. It's a much more of a community, a festive feel. Frequently, we'll have to open up the back wall of the Mary Baldwin room, and the music will kind of spill out into the library. People love it. They've got their coffee. I was speaking with one of our adult services librarians the other day, and she said, we get a lot of college students on the weekends, which is very interesting. And I asked her to ask them next time. I'm going to ask her if she asked them yesterday, which colleges they're from. And they're coming in asking pretty detailed reference questions, which I thought was very intriguing. So she's giving them a lot of resources, connecting them with databases. So it's a range of uses of the library. Lots of children, lots of grandparents, lots of dads, people who are busy during the week, who work during the week. So, but I did put in the Sunday hours just so you would have that decision package in there. And see what the cost and benefits are. Oh, yeah, our construction project started today.
Oh, good.
And there's a lot of excitement and sawing going on in the library today.
That's all upstairs, right? That's
Downstairs, they started downstairs in the lower level, and the lower level they'll finish the lower level before they move primarily to the upper level, which is the third floor of the library, later this summer.
How long would you expect that to take, the lower level?
The lower level will probably be the bulk of it, will be into the summer, will be well into the summer before it's done.
Sure. On the Sunday hours, can you do the Sunday hours with the people that you have now?
We can, because they are funded differently and they are staffed differently per union contract than the Monday through Saturday hours are. So Sunday hours for union members are time and a half overtime, people sign up for it, and then, we use the pot of Sunday hour money for that, for the Sunday overtime, and also for Sunday clerical help, Sunday substitutes, part-timers. It all is coded to the Sunday line as opposed to the rest of our staffing, which gets, the bulk of our staffing gets scheduled Monday through Saturday.
Anything else, everybody? You
Want to
satisfied?
mention the fact that we have it for self-checkout for a year,
Um,
and that's part of, if we're continuing effort to be
yeah,
a lot more
yeah.
efficient.
We have expanded our self-checkout
Yeah.
capacity. We added, so we.
But we delayed it because of
Yeah.
the freeze.
Yes. we
So
are-
if you look at page
Yeah.
161, you'll see that in the original budget, 161.
So that was one of the things that.
It got nixed.
Mhm.
The 5603 account, other equipment, Ramona had asked for $10,000 so that she could replace one of the self-checkout machines, and that got frozen. So that is part of why there's that increase next year again, because we deferred it, as well as adding this thermal door counter to the.
That was budgeted for last year. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a $4,500 increase, yeah. But that's why it appears again, because we never bought it.
Okay. But it's part of last year's
It
budget.
was part of
So
last
it's
year's
savings.
budget and it wasn't acquired.
So it's just sort of, gotta have.
Yeah, they're 6 years old now, and end of life for a self-check is 7 or 8 years old, so
So it's done.
getting there on those. Believe it or not, it's been 6 years. Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Anything else? I know we have the other library staff here.
Could I
Oh,
ask
yes.
if you could take an action though tonight on that
I thought-
position before the end of the evening, please? That's doable. That was, that's what the referral was, but. there's other
We did
reasons
want to
why.
discuss it.
Okay, sure, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
we did in fact want to discuss it as a body, there's no
Yeah,
question
okay.
about it.
I just don't want to forget, okay.
Oh, no, we won't forget.
Thank you.
So,
Okay. We ready for Joanne?
yeah, what I'm suggesting is, I think in the budget process, probably even perhaps, I'd like to know that Rob is available.
Okay. Fine. You all set?
Hi, Joel.
Joanne's budget is pretty much a status quo budget, with one
Hi,
exception.
Joanne.
You go to page 165 in the detail. The only increase is in the program materials, I'm sorry, the program, let's see. Yeah, program services account, which is on page 168, which is an increase of about $5,900. And that's primarily where the increase in our budget is, otherwise it's status quo. And if you look at page 30 of the handout, okay, if you look at page 30 of the handouts, the reason that I was so supportive of allowing her to spend more money on program services is because she's been incredibly successful in continuing to draw many people to all of her classes. The demand continues to grow, and as you can see from page 30, the revenues continue to grow rather vigorously. And my expectation is that with this money, that additional money that she'll use for program services, the $115,000 that we have budgeted for revenue next year is likely going to be $5,000 to $10,000 more. I know she wouldn't want to take that risk, but I think I'd be prepared to based on the trends that I see here. And the other thing that I have to mention is that about 3 years ago, we had the good sense to marry these two departments, as Joanne used to report directly to the Parks and Rec department, and it just seemed like a more natural fit and a better synergy. And it's far exceeded my expectations. I think together they've been able to accomplish a significant amount that's benefited each of their departments, much more so than if it hadn't taken place. And I'm sure that they'll talk about some of the things that they've done together and how they've grown stronger by virtue of the bond. But I'll turn it over to you, and you can talk about all the wonderful things that you've done and save a class for me next year and come over and see.
Absolutely. It's been a great year at Arts Place, and it's wonderful having Ramona as a boss, and I thank you for having that foresight to make this move, because we do feed on each other with creative ideas. I can't believe that when I began on the Fine Arts Committee, I was charged to come up with an idea to promote arts in town, and so I suggested Arts Day. And 30 years later, we are having this event, and it's affected over 15,000 children. This are some pictures from this last Sunday. And of course, one reason our programs continue to grow is that we have instructors on the caliber of June Webster. And this is her winning picture. This is a huge deal, first place. So I'll send this catalog, and look at who she's up against.
That was an international prize, too.
This is an international.
International prize.
So we have teachers at Arts Place that are ranked as the best in the world. They're here.
That's pretty good.
So that's why we get 36% of people attending our classes from outside Cheshire. And they're coming from Maryland and Massachusetts and New York City, and they're spending the weekend in Cheshire at our little hotel down the road and eating at our restaurants to come and take some of these classes. So I've been inviting so-called other famous artists, like Alice, to come and bring that draw here. This year we'll be having Patty Malika, who is a very famous acrylic artist. I think that Cheshire needs to be a destination for arts and leisure. I know because of Arts Place in the town, we have gone up as a more desirable town to live in. And if we now support Voice of Art and Ball and Socket, so we can bring more people here, we can improve our business. Everybody will get a little wealthier with it. I do think we could increase further revenue by copying what Arts Escape is doing in Southbury. They have pints, paints, and pencils. It's a men's only fine art class. It's their longest running studio
And they do it with beer?
class. And the men bring their beer and they paint. You don't know how much more money I can make if you can just with the alcohol.
It goes to the ordinance committee that issue is still
I
open,
think
so.
that's pretty cool.
So this is an original piece. This is a new class that's coming.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called Zebra Zen. There's no drawing on this. You'll be tracing and working on black paper. I want to send this around. This is a workshop Tony Ruggiero is doing. This is such a fun thing, board painting. I want to do this for the town council. I don't know if you guys want to come to Arts Place before a meeting. These are all original. You have to know nothing. You're mixing the paint, you're pouring it on. It is so much fun. And you can make note cards.
That's a war.
Now, you know we've been supporting Art Eels for over 15 years. And that sends, you know, an art instructor to
so
a
scary.
homebound adult. Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome.
Um,
It's a camel, right?
After we're
I'm
done with
gonna
it.
tell Tony that.
You have it upside down.
Some kind of Rorschach thing.
So Art Eels sends a teacher to one of our residents. That could be homebound temporarily or long-term, and that's funded entirely through our Friends organization and not Cheshire taxpayer money. I can't tell you how often I get calls from a neighboring town saying, how do we have an arts place? And I said, well, you needed a Michael Mylone.
Photos on that too.
And Arnett providing the place, absolutely. And it's been all of these years in the making, and we need to be very proud of it. And I'm proud of it, and I thank you all for your volunteer time too. If you have any
Some
questions.
council agreed to buy the place.
Mhm. Yes, that's true.
I had one question about the little synergy you guys are always talking about and bragging about. Are those Sunday concert series, is that your revenue our revenue, your share,
So
how does that all
our
sort
Sunday
itself out?
concert series is, we don't charge admission to our concerts. Per state statute, library services
Gotcha.
and programs have to be basic library services. But the concert series is and always has been funded by the Friends of the Library. So,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So we have two separate Friends of,
So
Friends
that's the
groups.
cultural thing that sort of
Yeah.
seems familiar with what
Yeah.
your
And our
cultural
increased
thing.
revenue is also in part because we're doing Sunday programming.
Okay.
The Sunday programming is so popular. So what I've decided to do, instead of having isolated projects and programs on all different Sundays, I'm grouping them together so I can have, one building supervisor and running projects for all ages,
Mhm.
adults, children, teens, and that's been wonderful. I'm just packing it together, and everybody loves Sundays.
So none of this incorporates increased rates or anything like that? You're still offering the same product?
My belief is to make art the most
Yeah.
affordable thing.
Okay.
And it's hard for anybody to undercut Arts Place because of the generosity of the town of having, providing the building and the insurance.
Yeah.
What other art school provides every material for every class?
Don't go there, because we might raise the rates.
I'm stopping.
I wasn't really suggesting raising the rates, because I mean, I go to one of the painting classes, I pay a fee. I mean, you pay to go, it's not like it's free.
Yes, but you're not getting a class list that says that rose Winsor Newton color
Right,
is
exactly,
$25.
right, exactly.
Because if you got that, it would be double what you pay to take the
No
class.
question.
And you
Yeah.
wouldn't want
Right.
to sign up.
Right.
But I can buy that one to $25 and spread it before all of you, and it's okay.
Right, right.
And I think that,
That's what I
I
do.
think one of the most important things that Joanne has always said is that it's a school, and people don't really sometimes understand it. They
Right.
think
Yeah.
that this is, arts and crafts, and it's just,
Right.
something to do in leisure
It's
time.
face painting.
It
You do
really
learn.
is, that's right.
The teachers teach.
These are professional people who are teaching,
Right.
so.
I haven't gotten any better with the art trial.
That's enough.
Or that you're-
Through no fault of the instructors.
Oh.
True. So, did you have any questions for me?
No, thank you. I'm governed.
Okay, thank
Looks
you.
like we're all set. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. So now we're gonna get into the really exciting stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna cover everything in.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I go back for a second?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason why we don't call it a school on the building, call it that it's Arts Place and Community School or something like that? I mean, it struck me when you said that, I never thought of it as a school. And I just wonder if it would, strike other people as well and maybe create more activity or.
What do you mean?
Public school.
Call it a
Kinda like it's a
school.
learning.
Rather than
You say it's
fine
a
arts.
school, I mean,
Well, you
and you
changed
think
the
about it,
sign.
if it is.
We changed the sign.
We changed the sign, and that
Outside.
increased our revenue,
Mhm.
saying what it is, because people thought, they didn't have any idea what Arts Place was.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's, so you have, it
Now,
does say
it
that
says-
now.
Yes, it
Okay.
says a school, but yes,
Good.
that's
I
a
think
great
that's great.
point.
Well, no, it's,
Keep saying-
the more you think about that, I think it's critically important
The
for
sign
people to
says
understand
art
that.
classes for everyone.
For all ages.
For all ages. Art
I get
classes.
calls all the time that people say, can I take it because I don't live in Cheshire?
Yeah.
So that needs to be another thing that's clear, that this is for your community also, just because it's Cheshire's
Yeah.
Arts Place, and they do pay, extra to come.
And it really is a pretty sophisticated learning experience. It really is. I'm impressed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We were gonna go through the full range of all of the departments under administration and finance.
I noticed the registrars are here. Were they on?
They're part of administration and finance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're under elections. If you go to
Okay.
page 44
Okay.
of your book,
I just lost
Which page, Michael, I'm sorry?
small book, 44,
Got it.
you will see that all of the departments that fall under that function are listed there. The town clerk is out of town, so that is not something we'll be discussing tonight, but the registrars did ask if they could attend, certainly they're welcome to, obviously. So if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I was going to have them.
Absolutely.
Because the rest of it is just Jim and Arnett and I, and we could
Absolutely.
hopefully go through it quickly, so
Let's
Tom and Susan,
facilitate
if you want to
everybody's
come up.
convenience.
and then you see where their numbers are on your pink sheet.
In the tab book, what page are we?
We are on page
60.
13.
Okay.
And
Hello, registrars. How are you? Hey, hi, Tom.
this budget, I pretty much approved it or recommended it as is. I just made one minor change, and it was in the permanent part-time position. I'm sorry, it was in the other position where they have the aggregate of election workers. I reduced it by about $4,100, simply based on looking at the trends of the last 9 years and hoping that maybe they could cut one person per voting area from each of the 2 elections that they're planning on. So other than that, everything else was recommended as they requested.
And there's no surprises in your budget because you're pretty sure there's going to be a Democratic and a Republican primary, and so that's all built into your budget. There's nothing extra special
Everything's pretty
anticipated.
flat.
Yeah.
It's going to be $4,000 less because the cost of having us certified, which is we're certified now by the state, that educational cost goes away until we are replaced or until we get new registrars. That's not an issue anymore.
Okay.
Michael, election workers?
The aggregate account that you used for election day, for all the poll workers, yeah. What I did was I went back and I looked at about 9 years of trends, and based on that, I came up with an average that was a little lower than this. I did ask for a summary in detail. Unfortunately, I never got it, so I had to make the judgment based on the trends that I saw and the assumption that, as everyone else is cutting back, maybe you could live with one less person at each of the polls.
Well, each one of the polling places has an assigned task for each of those jobs. We can't put anybody out there.
Okay, but for some reason, you've been able to accomplish the same level of service consistently for much less than the $33,000. And I don't know how you've done that, so obviously you've been able to somehow make it work.
Well, I would say part of that is for EDR, election day registration, that's mandated as well, that we have an election day registration here in Town Hall. And part of that is from, the clerk has very nicely
We're
helped
sharing
supply
staff with
this,
them,
yes.
essentially.
Okay. But whatever it is, the fact is that you haven't spent $30,000 since 2013, yeah, 2013, wow. Can't even read my writing.
Yeah.
So, and the
We
trends
just
have
wanna
been
be
pretty low.
prepared.
And I know you want to be prepared, but at the same time, if I could find some nickels and dimes to save, obviously, I'm trying to do that.
Sure. We're certainly cognizant of that. We're always looking for ways to save money. I just wanted you to know that we can't cut any of those positions.
Okay, again, but.
So somehow they may cost less because you're paying them by a certain hourly rate, I assume. So you've never achieved those
They
rates
wouldn't
perhaps?
reduce-
Not
Well,
cutting their
I saw-
hourly
hard
pay,
enough
but
to get
somehow if
people
you're
out.
not running up the hours and meeting what Michael sees as a trend line, then you're over budgeting dollars.
Well, and you weren't able to get the detail, but you.
No, I didn't,
So
no.
maybe that
Yeah.
would be
Many times that
beneficial to
hasn't
get.
changed.
to see.
It hasn't changed.
From the last year that
Well,
you got
Okay.
it. It hasn't-
All right, let me see if I can come at it this way then. Looking at the history, it looks like in 2017 was zero in the budget.
Oh, you know what, you have to look, the account changed, Peter, I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, we
What
moved
line
it.
item?
Do you know what it was in
Yeah.
17, Michael?
Yeah, I think it was, if you look at 17, it was in.
Page 17?
No, if you look at page 15.
Right,
It
yeah.
was account 5106.
Okay.
It was in salary award.
Okay.
I can
Oh,
give you,
okay.
I can
Perfect.
give you the details on
Okay,
that.
well, let's use that as the number.
Okay.
In 2017, it was 15,346. In
Right.
2018, it appears that you're gonna spend about, or did expend about 18,170, but yet you're asking for it to nearly double. So where's the Where's the $15,000 increase over what you've spent the past 2 years?
I think I could try to answer part of that. There's another election that's factored in to this fiscal year. And so the other thing that I took into consideration is that you don't have an even trend year after year because you have some years, 2 elections, 1 election, 2 elections, 1 election. And so I took that into
Or a
consideration.
referendum.
A referendum,
Yeah,
a
we- but
standalone
we-
referendum.
we've
So I
had-
tried to
we've
take
had
that into
primaries-
consideration.
We've had primaries the past couple of years.
Sometimes 3.
So, yeah.
But when I went back and looked, I looked at the years that had the same number of elections that they're expecting for next year. Again, which is why I felt that I could cut $4,000 and still
Okay.
they could live with it.
Okay, just as long as everyone understands we're not spending money that, you know, we don't have. You know, if we have a position for somebody, it's because it's mandated, we need to get that job done. We're not paying anybody a whole lot of money to do any of this stuff, and it's hard enough to get volunteers to do it now.
So what you're arguing is that reduction in your budget, which you're just seeing.
No,
for
I'm
the
just
first
saying,
time,
you know,
is a
you
problem.
can put whatever dollar amount you want on it, but we've got to get this done.
But you still have the same number
We're
of
gonna,
people.
still gonna have
Right.
this, we
Right.
absolutely need the
Right.
same number of people.
Okay.
We can find other
That's
ways
fine.
of cutting costs, we're always looking for, we're
Okay.
happy to do it.
Got it. Well, that's already in the manager's recommendation. That's not
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
Sally
okay.
has decided to
right.
disagree
Okay.
or agree with,
Yeah.
so.
Well, we'll see how
But
it
at
works
least
out.
it's explained. Okay, okay. Anything else, you guys? Any other
Yes,
questions?
we
Okay.
unfortunately have to revisit the issue of stipends for extra election events. We thought we'd done with that. Susan and I, unlike our deputies and all the poll workers involved in the Etienne Deliver recount, have not been paid for our week's worth of work. In the past, for example, in the Linehan-Falvey election recount, we were paid for that. State mandated audits, that's been covered. So we thought we were covered with that. Unfortunately, when we put our stipend request in for the most recent recount, it was declined, the payment was declined because technically it was not spelled out as being a referendum or primary. When we brought this before the council 2 years ago, we were under the impression that we all understood this was for significant special election events. And we thought that recounts fell within that category, especially after getting paid for the Linehan thing. We asked how we were going to be compensated for our extra hours, which were considerable, and it was suggested that we come to the council for clarification. So, so that we don't go through this every time, we hope the council will codify this somehow to put recounts and these state mandated audits in the same category as primaries and referenda. I've written all the background of the
I think the council would have to have, and I'm not interrupting, but I think, I mean, years ago, I thought you guys could show up once a year and still get your full pay. Now, that's not a real fair way of saying it, but
No.
basically.
That's crazy.
But the bottom line is, I thought you had a set rate of pay
Mhm.
that's authorized, and how you earn it is just based on what that set rate of pay is. That's what I had
Okay.
understood.
Well-
And you're operating, as
Okay.
your unique positions go.
Mhm.
So the codification part, I'm not at all prepared to even understand that tonight.
Mhm.
But we need to see what it is, because council gets to vote on this. That's one of the
Sure.
few things that we actually,
Right.
give an up or down vote on.
Sure.
And I don't even like being cast in the position of having to say yes or no after the fact. I think it should be a yes before the facts.
Right.
And so you need to make it fully understandable to us, I think. Wouldn't you all agree that we need to see
All
what
the
it is?
background right here.
So you have it all.
And for you, which we'd like this to be entered into the record so there's no confusion in the future.
Okay.
Pass these down, please. What kind of dollars are you talking about? $450 per election event per person. In this case.
Per registrar.
Per registrar.
Right, that's really what we're talking
I will
about.
give you an example for.
So $900.
Yeah, $900.
Right.
In terms of.
No, it's not just
It's
900.
huge to us.
It
Oh,
is.
well, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I mean, we're wasting, I mean,
I know,
it's almost
I
like a
understand.
no-brainer to me, but I'm just, I don't know. I just-
Well,
Well,
Why don't we do this? In the interest of clarifying this, okay?
Right,
Because
yeah.
it stopped at our office.
Right.
You extended certain additional payments to these folks. We
Right.
felt that this did not meet that condition that was established.
Mhm.
I said to them, you need to get it clarified. And so we can do that over the course of the next 3 weeks. We can
Right.
bring you the minutes, the actions of the last couple of councils where this was discussed and acted on, and then you can decide if you want to and need to revise it. But in our minds, we felt that it was not consistent with what was permitted. Now, it had been paid once before, but it was paid accidentally.
Mhm.
And we discovered that it had been paid, but we discovered that it probably did not meet the conditions that we felt were set out by the council.
Right, so it needs clarification.
Yeah, and we'll
It's
put
not-
all the
not a
background
question
material together
that
and
we
add it.
disagree or
one
whatever,
of the-
but, I mean, I'm not sure how you
So
guys
will you
are-
be proposing language that would address this going
I will
forward?
simply show you what you voted on,
Right.
and then you can decide based on what they're asking for, whether you want to add that additional language to make it clear that something like a recount also falls into this category of
Yeah,
special
I would
payment.
think whatever we can do to clarify, because I mean, I would certainly not want to work for free
Yes.
on a recount.
Right. And the incident that brought this up, for us, represents an entire week's worth of wages.
Right,
We're not talking about 2 or 3 hours.
right,
You know, we're talking about a week's worth of work here.
right.
Well, and probably one of the things that, the incident bore out that the machines, because it was such a simple ballot, bore out that the machines really worked fine. And it could have been left to stand as it was, the way it came out, election night. But unfortunately, it was
The option was
Yeah.
exercised.
And it's
by,
election law,
by
and
Mr.
they're
Effie,
entitled
and
to
he-
that. He's
he
entitled to
caused-
that.
yes.
Right,
which was fine, and that's what we did.
right, right.
But I mean, I think to not be compensated is really, it's just
Unacceptable.
unacceptable. And to that, several other things, this was in the Town of Cheshire adopted budget book of 2015-16, on page 15, I'm sure you don't have that,
No.
but here it says stipend for special election was $1,100, which meant Tom and I for each election would get 1,100, so 550 each. And then for whatever reason, that, going forward, we never got 550, ever.
Well, again, it goes back to the terms of what the council approved, and we were just administering that.
Right.
What is in there doesn't give us the authority necessarily unless there's the legislative
Right.
support to provide the authority we need to pay it. And
Which
then
I can
that's
assure
why-
you, we'll address that. I mean, the clarity needs to be made, and I'm sure council will have the opportunity to act on it.
Okay. And I'm sorry, finally, since we're kind of on a roll, I know this isn't as nice as the library, but,
No, it's
and the
okay.
arts place, but I brought along my pay stub. This has always been a bone of contention for us. We are always recognized at a rate of pay at 35 hours, which is 17 and a half hours for 2 weeks, 17 and a half hours each week. We're open from 9 to 3. So how do we miss a half an hour there? Usually, we're up there for the whole half hour. So it should be 18 or 36 hours. And I get that that would be over half time. I mean, as an employee, that would be more than a half-time employee. But nonetheless, that makes our hourly rate go down. It looks like it's for 35 hours, but if you put an extra 36 hours times 26 weeks, that comes to about $652 a year that we're not paid for.
Right, but if you didn't work those hours, you just worked
Should we
35
close?
hours.
Should we close early?
I thought you had a great deal of flexibility on how you run that office. I mean, this was how it was always explained to me, and maybe
But you
it's
always thought-
misinformation.
Yeah, but you always thought we got out, came in when we went, whenever we wanted, and that we just pulled out all the the machinery a couple days before the election and then.
No, I know it's a process.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to,
No, I get that, Tim, but
disrespect what you do. All I was suggesting was you were basically allocated a salary,
Mhm.
and there's an expectation you have your hours to work, to earn that salary. You're telling me that you spend 36 hours in the library, in town hall, in your office, and
Mhm.
that, it should, but you're paid for 35.
that's what I'm
But-
saying.
But it seems to me it we'll just stay for 35, yeah, close for lunch.
The history of it is this: it's always been assumed that it's one full-time equivalent.
Mhm.
Okay, one full-time equivalent is 35 hours.
Right.
So it's always been split up as 17 and a half and 17 and a half, just as their deputies were 17 and a half and 17 and a half. Now, a salary is a salary, whether you divide it by 18 hours
Right.
or 17 and a half hours.
Or somebody works
The
9.
gross salary is not going to change. The hourly rate is going to change, but it's not going to increase your gross. They are making a determination as to what your gross salary is, and whether you change that 17 and a half to 18, it's not going to change your gross, but your hourly rate will come down slightly.
Right. So then take it out. Take out the hourly, how many hours it was in.
Well, it's based on a 35-hour equivalent is what Michael's saying.
Yeah.
Right, I get it, but it still makes our hourly wage, it's less than what we
We're
were.
also awarding a salary total when you are.
It's not going to change what you get at the end of the year.
No, I
You're
understand.
still going to go home with the same gross.
Right, I understand.
Right. So, I mean, because that's
You know
the
what,
way it is.
maybe you can put it in writing, we'll sit down and try and,
Right.
and then I'll bring it back to them, because
Right.
I'm still confused as to the impact that it has. And
Because
again,
the
the
office
history
is
is
always managed, you don't close it for lunch, I understand, but
Correct.
someone has left for lunch, and
Right.
someone is in the
Sometimes.
office. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like me working through lunch at work,
Mhm.
I mean, that's the way it goes.
And the hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 3?
And during busier times of the year, we work substantially more than that. I mean, I'm currently got about 30 hours of unpaid overtime I'm working off, And as you say, we have some latitude about when
Yeah.
we're there,
Right,
so I'm chiseling away at that over time.
right,
But bottom line is all the work's still got to be done.
right. I completely
Yeah.
understand and respect that.
And we don't get any of the benefits of the town hall, none.
Right, and I understand that too. And that's by what, state statute, town charter, whatever it is.
No, there
Yeah.
are registrars, by town
Well,
charter perhaps,
yeah,
but like
yeah,
there are
but
registrars.
Whatever, it's sort of always been the same
Yeah.
type of thing.
Their hours don't reach the level that would allow them to qualify for benefits.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Not on the bones of contention, but about your budget, everything else is pretty clear?
No?
No, everything else is.
Because we'll definitely take up the bones of contention, I know Rob will want to take that up.
Well, it's not really a bonus, we just want to get paid for the work we do.
Right, I didn't say bonus, I said bone.
Oh, bonus,
Contention.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting to lose my hearing, Tim. I just got hearing aids, I'm breaking them in.
I'm losing my voice.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Yes, all set.
No, good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Jim, would you join me?
Oh, I don't need that. That's me. I want to keep my.
Oh, it's over already, 34-18.
34-18 in the second quarter, 7 minutes.
It's over.
Okay.
UConn, South Carolina.
No idea.
We're going to do all the administration.
Administration.
Yeah, I know.
Admin.
What I was going to ask you to do, if you could, just look at page 44 in the
Oh,
plan.
yeah. 44?
Yeah, the
Which is,
financial report.
which is the department.
The one without the tabs.
You can blame Judy on this.
Tablets.
I call it the summer book.
Yeah, we never
decide what the.
Anything else?
It used to
Said
be the big book
44?
and the little
Yeah,
book.
no, that's
And now
no,
it's-
the sideways book and the
Summary.
Yeah,
horizontal.
the only
and
reason I refer you to this is those 12 or 13 departments that
At the top.
that make up administration and finance are what
Right.
we're gonna go through. We're gonna go through them, you know, with both the small and the large book. But I just wanted you to see, the overall increase in this area is $654,567. And really, the crux of it is the pension and retirement plans, which increased by almost $257,000, and the medical benefits, which increased by about $212,000. So that's where Jim and I are gonna probably spend most of the emphasis, but we do want you to see everything else that's here, because there's a few anomalies, especially in the town council and the town manager's budget.
There's some anomalies in the town council, all right.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that, okay? So Arnett's gonna start by taking you through the pages and a quick summary of the departments as they are listed here, and then Jim's gonna pick it up, and then I'll pick it up later on as we get to some of the other
Feel free
departments.
to interrupt me, I will try to make this as quick as possible. If we could start with town council.
What page are we on?
Page 2 and 3, actually.
Of the,
No, let's start with page 1
of the tab book, right?
of the line item detail.
Okay.
We won't be using I won't be using the other book for now,
Okay.
and I won't use the handouts until we
One.
get it. Okay. So you can see on the summary page, on page 1, that the council budget is going down by about $1,700, 5.4% decrease. And if you turn to the next page, here are the anomalies which Michael referred. Some of these are going to show up in the the FY 2018 estimated expenditures. There is an advertising cost that's significantly over budget. That was for the charter, to publish the entire charter. That was about $9,900. We had to buy an insert for that. Plus there was a lot of advertising for that. We don't expect that to have anything like that coming up in the next year. Contractual services, Maryland got lesser, a little over. And line 5409, the estimated expenditures for FY18 are over. About 24,000 of that is the Gov USA, HR USA for the town manager position.
Yep.
The consultant for the town manager position. Hopefully we won't need that again for a very long time. And then in 5603, there's a little bit of extra money under estimated expenditures for other equipment. We had to have install fiber cable for our broadcasting capabilities, and we had a repair on one of our pieces of equipment, and we're actually probably going to have another repair if we can ever get the communications to.
Was the fiber link connected between upstairs and down?
That's what we did.
Okay, it is done.
It is now,
Okay,
yes, but it wasn't.
okay.
How come in contractual services, it went down by such a small number? If we don't, obviously we don't have that consultant. Why did it go up so much?
No, because look at the way it
No,
was
I see.
budgeted before. It was budgeted at 8 and we spent 30.
And the estimated expense is what's over budget.
Yeah.
I got you.
That money was
Okay.
not appropriated in
Okay,
the.
so we sort of missed on that.
Yes.
We just
And I know
didn't get
we- yeah, right.
appropriated,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, fine.
And the same thing, Tim, with the, that Arnett mentioned about the advertising for the referendum, the,
Right.
Charter.
revision.
There's going to be a little bit of savings going forward, in a couple of accounts, and we continue to do what we can to keep the costs down, so. Any questions before I?
Nope,
Okay.
from me.
Page 3, town manager. You'll notice that there's a slight decrease in that budget, just over 1.6%.
Even with a little overlap?
Well, that stops on June 30th. So it's
Yeah.
affecting the
There's a
estimate.
there's a month overlap.
There's 2 months overlap, but it happens before the start of the new fiscal year.
That's on this
Oh,
budget.
fine.
Right.
So the big hit is in the
So if
estimated.
you go to
Yeah.
page 5,
Okay.
under
line item 5102, under FY 2018 estimated expenditure, that 523,370, that's the hit.
Right.
For
Yep.
the 2-month overlap. So, yeah.
And also, that also includes my severance pay,
Okay.
okay?
Yep. So
Didn't you just
that's
do a pink slip?
salmon slip.
Salmon slip.
Salmon slip. Oh, yeah, we'll give it to him.
Oh, sure, now you're gonna call it that.
Well,
I think we've done a stellar job of trying to minimize overtime. It's something we've worked on for years, and we'll continue to minimize that. And other than that, the town manager is pretty much a status quo budget. If anybody has any other.
Well, we need one, I guess there's not much we can do about that, so.
yeah.
I have it.
One thing that I did want to say, if I could, one of the reasons the overtime's gone down is because of the job that Arnett's done of trying to manage the office more efficiently, but she was reclassified about a year ago, and when she was reclassified, she was in a position where she could no longer get overtime. Her hours haven't diminished, that's for sure. But the one thing I wanted to say is how beneficial it's been for her to be in this position, because the reason I asked for it was to give her the authority that she really deserved and had in terms of the day-to-day responsibilities. And what it allowed her to do is to become even more involved in everything that goes on. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to make the transition for Sean that much easier. There isn't a thing that I've done that's important that she's not aware of and can't handle and can't help him transition through. So I think it's going to be a significant benefit for everyone involved, because it's just going to make this whole process go that much easier. And I think it was, first of all, I appreciate the fact that the council saw the foresight in doing it, but it's had more benefit than I anticipated.
Okay.
Plus, I've been able to do less.
Right.
And I'm really
Right.
tired. All right, shall we move on to town attorney?
Absolutely.
Okay, town attorney, page 7. Take a look at your pink sheet. Page 7, where it starts. And also in the decision, in your handout, you've got page 2, 2, 3, and 4. Reference those as well. This is a tough one. I'll show you why in a second. So this budget is projected to increase by about 9.39%. If you turn to page 3 in your budget package, you will see the up and down of the town attorney's budget. It's really dependent upon the type of work and the type of issues and the matters that we have pending during any given year. And if you look at this list, half the time we were under budget, half the time we were over budget. And if you turn it over to the back, it gives you just a sample of some of the items that we've had that have been kind of big ticket items that have bumped up the budget in certain years. So, that being said, you now go back to page 2, the decision package, in here. One of the options that you have on this budget is to perhaps reduce the request and the actual appropriation. If you feel comfortable doing that. At this point, we see no major matters coming before us, like a DOC lawsuit or any of the major personnel issues that we've had back in the past. We don't see any of those on the near horizon, so.
So last year with charter, that was sort of an extra, correct?
Mhm.
So
Yes, that was
definitely an
a
extra.
There are some anomalies
Right,
in
right.
here.
So
that-
last year was an extra, that was an extra.
Right.
Some of the Chapman stuff had to be extra.
Yes.
Right, definitely.
Yeah. The Chapman legal fees were probably about 30,000, and the charter revision were about the same.
And then you
All
had.
total, but that may
Which is still-
extend over more than one fiscal year.
Right.
But that's the total.
But you also had the DOC ongoing as well.
That
right?
was going,
Yeah.
that
And that
seemed
was-
to go on
Yeah.
That was
forever.
4 years.
So those are sort of the big tickets. And the DOC has gone away, correct? That's
That
done.
is
We
gone.
just said-
Gone
I mean,
away.
the check is
It
the
is
check,
gone.
and that is
Yeah.
gone.
That check's been cashed and, yeah.
Okay.
So unless there's, of course, there,
Well,
as a
what about
caveat,
some
there
of,
could
like,
always be
some of this
some-
ordinance stuff that's gonna go on with, rewriting this, that, and the other? That's,
That's pretty normal.
that's normal
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
that's part of the, right,
Yeah.
okay, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And of course, something could happen. There could
No,
be
no, no, understood.
something horrible happen,
Absolutely.
and we could be sued and it
Yeah.
pops up.
Yeah.
But regardless of what we appropriate, if we have legal fees, we're gonna
Right.
have to find the money from contingency or somewhere. So one of the things that you have an option to do would be to lower the appropriation for the town attorney with the understanding that contingency might be available if we need the money, but it would also help lower, we're not talking
Yeah,
about
I
money.
just
You know,
don't
we save people,
understand.
a couple dollars a year on their taxes.
Yeah, well, yeah, why on page 7? Oh, am I not looking at the town attorney? Where's the town attorney?
Yeah, page 7.
Okay, so the manager is recommending 393,800.
Yeah.
Right, and you can cut that further if you feel comfortable doing so, it's just an
But
option.
why
on
did
the
we
table.
come up with 408,600?
That was Al's recommendation.
And
Yeah,
that was based on
yeah. Al
the
had
year before
requested.
where he cost us a lot less?
Pardon me?
It cost us a lot less the prior year?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's he see that we don't see? Money signs?
No, because he's only gonna get paid for what he does. I think that he just is very conservative in not knowing really how to estimate this. He doesn't have the level of detail and analysis that Arnett does. And I think he just presumes that there's going to be X amount of work to be done. And there might be, but based on what we see going forward, as Arnett said, we don't have any of those large outstanding cases that we know are going to continue. And all we're doing is putting in front of you what we put in front of ourselves. And this is what we look at to make a determination as to whether we should cut or not cut.
Why wouldn't we keep the appropriation the same at 360?
That's your decision.
And that's your decision.
Yeah, but I think we should put a page marker on that one.
Yeah, well,
That's
we're not making any decisions tonight.
understand that.
But I just want you to be, I want you to be
Page mark.
aware of where there are continuing opportunities to cut. And
Right.
there's no perfect way to come up with a number, other than to look at the history, the trends, project out whether we have any major cases, which we don't. We'll
Yeah.
have revaluation, but we have a separate appropriation for that in the capital budget. But with nothing significant on the horizon, it looks like that the account can be reduced. Now, what is the monthly 21, so,
So your 328 estimate incorporates what's left on the operating budget, the current fiscal year?
it projects out what we think they're gonna spend
Right.
based
So I'd
on what's.
even-
And that could be
I'd take
wrong.
the average of 360 and 328 and come up with something like 345.
Okay, all right, well, again, these are all gonna be revisited
Of
at some
course.
point when you sit down and decide how you wanna cut and where you wanna cut.
Right.
but-
Yep.
And you can cut anywhere you want, but the decision packages at least
Yeah, that
will
seems-
focus you on
Right.
areas where there's
It's good to see
opportunity.
this. I think you've showed us this kind of stuff maybe.
We did it
Yeah.
10 years ago, but we
Yeah.
changed the format of
Yeah,
it
this
and tried
is-
to make it a little simpler.
Right. And
More
this
information.
also includes the teacher side, the education side, labor negotiations, all that stuff. We're talking not just,
It does
We're
not
talking-
include Board of
That's
Education.
separate.
They
It's a
use it-
separate attorney.
so
They use
their
a
budget
different
is,
attorney.
okay,
This is only
because they're
vertical
using
line.
Floyd Dugas, but I just
Yep.
wanted, okay.
But it
Now-
does include labor costs also.
Right.
So our net calculates in Floyd Dugas's,
Yeah, that's what I-
That dollar amount is not simply Martha Kalina.
That's what I was.
It includes
That's
Birch
what
and
I thought.
Hoses.
Right.
It
That
includes
that's
arbitration,
town attorney costs.
arbitrators, arbitrators.
Right,
And,
Right.
and the hearing, and the hearing
right,
officer.
just
gets
as
the
I
monthly
thought.
stuff,
Okay,
right,
good.
monthly as
So
well.
that's, so, and our labor stuff is taken care of.
I was gonna
We're
say, to
basically
that
done
point,
with
there's
all
no
that.
contract up.
Yeah, we're.
Correct.
Right,
So,
yeah.
It's
no, but
just-
we can have a couple of labor disputes.
Well, you
We
can
go
have
to
a labor
arbitration,
dispute.
but they're not
Yes.
$50,000
Right,
claims.
that's
You know,
right.
They're
That's
$6,000,
right.
$7,000 at most
Okay.
issues.
sticky.
Okay. So
Okay.
that probably should end up.
Next.
I should have brought that sticky pad down. Well, that's pretty much it for me, except for under, general services. Do you want me to wait, or do you want me to just,
No, why don't you do that?
should I, Tim,
Yeah.
you mind if I just jump ahead a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah, go
Okay.
right ahead.
All right,
We've done
this,
everything else.
this is,
That's till 8:15.
this is, I don't know what time Oh,
What page are you
the general, we're gonna go to.
We're skipping town
page
clerk, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's not here.
37, the town clerk hold that meeting we rescheduled.
Yep,
So page 37 in the line item book.
yep.
There is a page in the plan, but we don't need to refer to that now. And then also, there is a decision package if you go to page 5 in your handout. Please.
Ah, yes.
So actually, this position shows on page 38 and 39 of the budget book. This is something that I've been asking for. I've asked for this before, and I understand that this is an incredibly difficult time, and it's financially and in terms of adding staff. I just wanted the opportunity to explain the benefits of this to you. There is attached to the decision package, there is an article called Report Effective Government Outreach Requires Social Media. It's one of the articles that we read all the time from government magazines. This is from Governing Magazine. It's something that's critically important in terms of the accuracy and timeliness of information that we get out to the public. It's also important in two-way communication to serve our customers and our residents. And it's one of the areas that I feel we don't do a good enough job. It's very difficult to do this ad hoc and piecemeal. We have a website with over 100 pages. We have, I don't even know how many, I've lost track of how many Facebook and Twitter accounts we have. We have a government access channel. We have a tremendous GIS program. We now have building permitting online, which took us 2 years because we just didn't have the time to put into it to just roll it out as much as we would have liked to. So once again, I'm going to be a broken record, and I'm going to request consideration of this position. This will also free up time for other people who are now piecemealing Facebook and the website, and they would be able to spend some time doing their jobs instead of these jobs. We have incurred some overtime with some of the staff in our office to assist on the new website because people just don't have the time. And it's also critical that there be good judgment, good communication skills, and a knowledge and access to all our, knowledge of and access to all our departments.
On the decision packet where you indicate contractual savings, you
Thank
can
you.
identify $25,000 in costs.
That's what you had put in the budget last year. So this current budget for 17-18, you did not support the position, but you understood that there was a need, and you appropriated $25,000 for us to use contractually, and we are using that to assist us with developing the new website.
Oh, so you're paying, that's going towards
So
the
that will,
cost of...
so this year, we will use it. If we get a body next year, hopefully with the braid attached,
Okay,
we would not need that $25,000.
okay, so a one-time cost basically.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, the idea was to try to have a
Well, we
contractual
want
employee support this need, and it's become apparent to us that it just won't work. It really needs to be a full-time person who can take on all the responsibilities that go along with this, and a lot more responsibility. The other thing that we've done, and I don't know how likely it is we've talked to Vin about the possibility of sharing this position with the Board of Education, because their situation isn't so different from ours. The other thing that Arnett mentioned, which I realize we need to really pick up, is our continuing exchange of information with people. Initially, we operated with the idea that we were disseminating information and that was our charge. And just doing that is a pretty rigorous and demanding thing to do. But with social media now, there is this ongoing need to be available and ready to talk to people, and to talk to people timely and accurately. And that's going to put a lot more pressure on us in terms of maintaining a high level of service and a timely response to information.
Is it reasonable to assume that within the scope of their responsibility, that this could dovetail with some of the promotion of the town,
Oh,
economic
absolutely.
development programming and things of that nature? or
Oh, it's
not
all-
envisioned?
It's everything. It's anything and everything. It cuts across so many different areas, and it affects every department. The problem is that we rely on the departments to do this,
And they
with
don't,
Arnett
because they don't have
managing it.
time.
And the
Right.
problem is, but they don't have the skill set either, Tim.
Right. I know.
And so you can
It's
look at
different.
one department's
Yeah.
website and it's pretty good. You look at another's and it's not good.
Right.
And there's stuff that should be up there, and there's stuff that could be
Shouldn't, yeah.
changed, and it's a mishmash of a level of quality and skills. And so to look at it doesn't necessarily give you a good feeling about the town's dissemination of information and the quality and timeliness of it. And that's the big problem. And it's not to in any way diminish what Arnett does, because this isn't her job, and yet she has to manage it, and she has to manage 7 or 8 or 9 people who've been trained and trained and trained and still don't understand all of the needs that they have to execute in order to get something done, or forget to in a timely manner, keep the page updated, or...
This is on a scale with what sort of happened on a much larger scale with our technology, our need to
Yeah,
invest in technology.
exactly. Now,
It's just
now
that,
this is,
you know, the
that's
hodgepodge
right.
works so far.
8 or 9 years now,
So then-
catching up with, exactly, that's exactly
Because
right.
it's just kind of expanded, but,
Right.
you know, it doesn't mean
It's
it has
our
to happen,
it's our
but it is at
communication
least-
link.
Yeah.
It is a big piece of stuff.
And Tim, you mentioned Facebook, that's another issue. If we had an active electronic media coordinator who managed the town's Facebook account on a very timely and reliable manner, we would get people going to that page and getting accurate information instead of getting information from another Facebook page that is not necessarily accurate, but people are getting their information from that page. So we have the ability, the opportunity to create something that will give people real information in a timely manner and will enable them to ask questions and
Right.
interact with us.
Right.
There's just no one here who has the time and
To
the
stay up with it,
technical
yeah.
ability to do it all.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just
Okay. Well,
managing
we
Twitter,
get it,
yeah.
we get it. I mean, whether
I'll
we feel
shut up
it's
now.
fine,
When
we
is
can
the
do
new,
it.
when is
I
the new town
completely
website
understand that.
supposed to be up?
It was supposed to be up in December.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's why I missed it,
incredibly
yeah.
labor intensive, and Apex is helping us. We have to get someone to help us with it. The staff just doesn't have the time.
So do we have a new ETA or?
I'm hoping by July 1st,
Wow.
and unless we can get somebody who can really crank it out, which is possible. So once we get that person in place, I'll update everybody on that. I'm not sure who it is.
I understand the issue with some of these social media outlets.
It's kind of scary.
I honestly don't think it's our job to police them. Or
No,
try
oh,
to-
no, 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 no.
or
I
try
don't,
to even correct information that's out there.
I don't think we can.
I mean, I hope that's not what.
No, not at all.
Okay.
What we do is we essentially ignore them,
Beat it with the
but
facts.
we provide
Yeah.
a Facebook page that has the accurate information and has it in a timely manner and where people can ask questions and get a response, so that hopefully people will come to our official page instead of getting information somewhere
You're gonna
else.
probably get swamped.
But that's why we don't do it now.
Yeah.
It's just.
So we just have to let it hang out there.
Well, if we
And-
have anybody post on our Facebook page, we respond, and we try to respond
Right.
that
People
day,
can post
even if
now
it's the
on the
weekend.
town page?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can monitor it, but, yeah, I check it a couple times a day, every day, just to make sure we don't have something funny going.
Right.
Yeah. But you're right, it's not our responsibility to monitor, nor can we hold that.
And then, Jim, you want to just touch on the rest of the budget?
Yeah, in general services, maybe just a couple
on
other
page
comments
37, yeah.
on page 37. I mean, overall, outside of the issue with the technology media coordinator, that budget would have gone down, outside of that, would have gone down overall. And there's a few reasons for that. Our postage in the last few years and our telephone actually have kind of leveled off or even gone down slightly. And I think it's just, more and more people were using a lot more scanning and email. That's the way we do business now, so
And we have that ability with our copiers and so forth. So that's a very positive trend, and it's been trending that way for several years. There was also a telephone maintenance contract. I think we budgeted about $27,000 last year. It actually only came in this year at $18,000, and I'm not sure why it decreased, but that's where we're at. And so there was a decrease of about $7,800 in that line item. And then finally, GIS maintenance. I think we budgeted $10,000 last year. We're down to about $3,000. Part of that is because we did have a little bit of capital project money for GIS that could accommodate some of the things that they wanted to accomplish this year. But at the end of the day, too, I think they're getting to a point where they've plateaued with some of the work that they want to, maintain on that, and it's going down. So I think, overall, general services is probably a positive overall.
Could I go back to something Arnett says, 'cause, and I apologize, Jim, because I know you started, but
Yep.
I had a customer service complaint, and you just happened to mention how, it took 2 years to institute the online building permit stuff. I had an enormous complaint on someone who made a complaint on the customer service they received, because they were told they had to file a ginormous application online and couldn't have a preliminary meeting with the building inspector.
Okay.
Now, we've had issues with that staff person before. I think I've been aware of the staff person for 10 years being an issue, and I'm just making an issue of it now without a resolution coming out of the comment. Names aren't being mentioned, but it was an absolute disaster how this customer service thing was deferred to an online application. And that person was in the office.
Can you share it with me privately?
Absolutely. I just didn't want to forget.
Okay.
And you jarred my memory because it took us 2 years to get to this point of insulting a Cheshire taxpayer.
Well, that's certainly
And we
not
could have
ours.
perhaps done it, differently.
Yeah, well, if you,
Post the system.
I will follow up with you so that I
Absolutely,
can find
appreciate
out
that.
who
And
it
I
is and
probably
what
could have
happened.
done it a little more tactfully, but I just didn't want to lose track of it.
You didn't name anybody's name, so
No, I
it's been
didn't.
very tactful.
But to that point, is there a vehicle in place where if someone, Mr. Jones, wants to get a new deck for his house and he's 86 years old and he doesn't have a computer, can Mr. Jones come in and have him do it manually?
Yeah, and they'll help them do it. The problem is they're still gonna have to enter it electronically, but they all know how to enter it electronically, and they've actually done it for some people who have a problem. Oh yeah, we don't expect people who don't have a computer to just be left out to dry. They have to come in, though, that's the only problem. But getting back to your problem, if you could share that with me, I'd
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Tomorrow morning.
Just another comment, because I'm a little familiar where those computers set. They don't seem to me like they're barrier-free areas comply with ADA. Is that possible? Or could it be checked?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yep, sure. It can be checked, and it should be,
Since you have to comply with those things.
it should
Well, you
be.
need ADA compliance on forms or something.
No,
If
for
Basically,
computer.
if
Public
Mr. Jones
use.
comes and he's in a
Yeah.
wheelchair,
You
he's
can't get to
80-something years old.
the, you
he
can't get to the desk.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a small, narrow area that doesn't lend itself to a wheelchair getting under there and so on. That's interesting that it's in the building department of all
Yes.
places where
Mhm.
we should be most compliant. Okay, thank you. That's a good
That's a
point.
good one.
That is a very good point. Okay. Yeah, and we could do it in there. And ADA compliant, okay. Okay, anything else? Jim, want to go back to finance?
Yep, or anything else?
Well, we were gonna go,
Sorry,
we were gonna
I
continue.
apologize.
No, that's great.
No, we,
I don't know if anybody has any questions on it.
That was on a roll.
We were on general services, so it just came.
So Jim's gonna take you back to finance.
And this is really gonna be pretty quick, because if you look on page 19, that's the overall. I think this tells a story, because if you look at the percentages on the very right-hand column, salaries across, and this includes, finance includes my office, accounting and treasury, tax, assessor, That's what predominantly all the salaries are, 2.45% increase. An overall decrease in non-salary line items. So I can honestly say I looked through the budget pretty carefully. It is a very, maintenance budget. There's really no surprises there. Finance had a 1.58% increase. Tax was 3.82. Assessor 1.71. I don't think there's really any variances that I think warrant your attention. Outside of that, I'd be happy
Including
to.
insurance?
Well, we're gonna get into audit, insurance, and tech, because those are some bigger line items. So I
Okay.
wanna go down a little bit more.
Okay.
While you're talking about the salaries, you should talk about the change that we made. There was a position eliminated
Right.
in this budget.
Tax, well, if you recall from last year, we consolidated a position in the tax and assessor office, so right now it's, I think 20 hours they spend in tax and 15 hours in assessors. I will say.
Not 36, 35.
Yeah. But the person that was in that role, she was very experienced. She'd been with tax office for quite some time, so she was in a pretty good position to spend the afternoon in the assessor's office and learn the assessor ropes. But as fate would have it, I had an opening in my office this year, which is the payroll coordinator. It's 30 years of institutional knowledge. Mary Ellen Anderson did a phenomenal job with that. And the person that was doing this dual role had some payroll experience, and she's just had glowing reports from both tax and assessor. And so we hired her in my office to do the payroll. She's been there for several months now, doing a great job. That's working out fine. The one thing I'll say is now we, because of the unions, we have another person who picked up that dual role. And she's a very hardworking person, I just want to say that, but it's pretty challenging because now she's trying to learn two jobs, both tax and assessor, because she wasn't in that department originally. But we're going to, help her out as best we can. She's a very, hardworking person. I think she's going to do fine there. But just a change, and we'll get through it.
The only point I wanted to remind you of is last year we made some changes operationally with positions. As we get to them, I want to just remind you and to tell you how well it's working. But in this case, we went from 8 to 7 over 2 offices and split one person between the two. And it's worked out okay.
The only other thing I just want to remind everybody that we have a revaluation coming up this year. It's not a physical revaluation, it's a statistical revaluation, but it is a full valuation, so it's going to be quite a bit of work involved with that. We have a company that's working on things. Unless there's any questions on those departments, the audit, if you recall, we just approved at the council meeting this past week. That was a 1.61% increase. General insurance. General insurance overall, that is on page
28.
yes. General insurance had an overall 5.85% increase, but that's because our consultant has maintained their consulting fee at $12,500. I used about a 6% increase when I was. I'm sorry.
It went down. 5.85% reduction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That went down, yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering how you did that.
Let me,
There's no one else who.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. He taught me if it's got parentheses around it.
It means
it's-
lower.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how he did that.
Yeah. So, tell you what, I'm gonna circle back and, let me just check my file, make sure I got my notes right on that. But,
Well, Jim, if I recall, what happened was,
Yeah.
when we got an estimate for our rate increase this year, which was pretty high, and then they came back to us and they held the rate constant. And so we, and you can see it, our
Yeah, it was
estimated was.
380 last year.
Yeah, our estimated
Running at.
went down. considerably, and so the increase is coming off the base of the 380.
I'm sorry, and
not the
that's where I
base-
was coming from.
Not the
yes.
base of the 428.
I was looking at the budget figure.
So it's, it's up 23
We
from
were
the extra.
projecting off
Right.
this year's
Right,
actual,
right,
so I'm
right.
sorry, that's
Yeah.
the world I'm in, is where we are right now. So there is a 6% increase over what we actually ended up.
Decrease.
Decrease.
Right, I'm sorry. Decrease from last year's budgeted amount, which actually ended up being less on an actual basis.
Right.
So, I'm sorry.
Nice.
I think we're both on the same page. It's just-
Yep.
We're just seeing it different way.
Time to go home, Jim.
But Jim, you still have additional
Yeah.
good news because we're still hopeful. that-
Yeah, we are, and I think every year I run into this situation because as we get closer to the end of the budget process, I get more information. They're still working on trying to narrow down those rate increases. Likely, they're going to be half of what I was expecting. So this decrease will actually hopefully be even more, and I hope to come back to you in a couple of weeks with more information on that. Technology is on starting on the next page, on page 29. And this had make sure I get this right, an overall 4.46% increase. That's on page 33. That's the overall. And just a couple highlights on this. Apex Technology's been with us for quite a while now, but I can say that for the past at least 3 or 4 years, they've maintained their fees constant, and we still have Corey, who's with us pretty much every day, and there certainly isn't less work involved with those services. We just got through an upgrade with Munis, and we had to upgrade our servers this year to take advantage of a required Munis software upgrade. And I can't tell you how much was involved in that, so I know they were working morning and night for a couple of weeks just with that one project. And they service both us and the Board of Ed, but this is just our portion of the portion.
Is this the third year of a 3-year deal with those guys?
No, this is the 5th or 6th year.
Yeah.
No, I thought we had renewed a contract.
We
with
did,
them.
and it was 3 years, and the 3 years are up.
That's
And
what I
it
just
doesn't
said.
matter, okay, I'm sorry, you said, we were 2 3-year
2
contracts.
years, yeah, we did 2 years, it's 2 3-years back to back.
Okay.
And we
Thought I
now
said,
have
Is
to.
this the third year of a 3-year?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
maybe
I'm
I
Yeah, we
sorry.
did, but we were thinking about.
Jim and I are having
just
trouble
having a-
hearing down
Oh,
here.
I know.
It's the,
No,
yeah.
I
Their
guess
It's
contract
the
needs
fact
to
that
be
they're
renewed.
talking over
Yes.
here, and I
Yeah,
was
the only reason I
distracted.
was asking, so this is gonna cover, this
Oh, I
is
thought
the
you were.
actual going
I'm sorry.
forward contracted rate, so this isn't.
Yeah, they've held the rate
change.
constant, but
Right,
we
but
do
it
have
could
a
change.
technology committee meeting scheduled for
I just asked. It's
early
in
May.
In like May, right?
Yeah,
May 2nd.
because
Okay.
we
May
want to
2nd.
use them as the sounding
Wherever
board
you guys
to
want.
come back to you with their support or suggestions or
Okay.
recommendations.
But in the meantime, that's
Yes.
still, I don't know what we were spending for the 2 parties involved in this, that were employees for the town. But I bet it added up to more than 105.
It added up to a lot more than 105,
Plus
and we got
retirement.
a fraction of the quality of the
No,
service.
that I know,
Yeah.
but it has borne out.
Oh, yeah, it's borne out. Did you hear what he said? He was referring to the fact that we used to have 2 full-time employees that we paid well
Right.
beyond this 105, and, the product has been much better and the savings has been significant. Yeah, this was a really good move on everybody's part. It worked out great.
So the only other thing I wanted to mention on tech is this, we were just talking about the building permit software. So that's in here on page 30. And it's right in the middle, that 20,880. But we did reduce it. If you go at the end of the top of the next page, Michael did reduce that by 2,760. Bottom line is, we were able to get that on a fiscal year, so that only represents 10 months of software. But that's the reason why this budget went up in a nutshell. If we took that out of here, it would be a 1% increase in the tech budget.
Okay, then the next department is on page 41, which is public property. And I'll go through it quickly. This pays for all of the maintenance of all of our buildings, and it's responsible for also the utilities. The increases here are one, $15,000 in the maintenance account, which I think I'm probably going to be able to cut back a little bit more. About 18,000 of this increase is for natural gas and fuel oil. And then there's another $5,000 which goes to the performance contract for the performance contracting project that we initiated. We pay the lease from here. So most of the increases are in those three areas. But the one thing I wanted to mention, because Walter and George worked pretty hard on keeping our utility costs down. Our electricity costs in this budget are about $36,000 less than they were in 2011. And overall, all our utility costs are less than what we paid in 2011. So the effects of a lot of the changes we've made over time are starting to really bear fruit. The only downside is we freeze to death every day at certain parts of this building. We're getting used to it, right, guys? Yeah. She's got a blanket and a heater. Somebody wears a coat and 5 minutes, but other than that, it's work. But the summer will be here soon, and we'll be able to. I wear 2 pairs of socks, and
Was there, now, I mean, over time, obviously, the trend seems to be to move towards natural gas and away from oil.
yes.
Has that yielded a big savings? I mean, has that real over time, what was, I'm just trying to figure, what's, has the oil, switching that from the oil to natural gas?
I'd have to, you know what, I'm gonna hold out for when Walter comes next week, if you don't mind. Because he can give you a chapter and verse, he's got more statistics than I could ever imagine. But using the natural gas has made a big difference. I think I showed you last week, we went in the pool from, yeah, 297 to 70,000. The problem is that you're seeing natural gas accounts increase because we're going more to natural gas. So to give you an actual dollar savings, I couldn't do it, because in gross dollars, you'll see natural gas is going up because it's the utility of choice. But I'll have Walter do an analysis of that so that you can see what the benefit is. The other thing is that we are starting to realize the benefits of the solar panels at the landfill. So he's built some of that savings in here, but I think the savings was conservative, and I think we can go back and probably build a little bit more savings in here.
Primarily, I was just curious, if there's, if there's really been a savings as we make that transition, away from oil, all the costs of transitioning from oil to natural gas, whether that's actually been a significant savings.
There's a lot of, there's savings built into the performance contract too, so some of the savings are kind of buried because you're paying them for equipment.
Right.
But
yeah, but he can take all that out and skinny it down to the net and tell you what's happening on a per unit basis.
Thank you.
Yes.
So with the solar farm, that's just barely come online. We haven't recognized any savings yet, but he's built them in, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, actually, we built in savings for 2 months this year already.
Oh, that's right, because
Yeah,
we've got.
and then,
we've got-
right, because they just went online, I think just yesterday.
That's right.
And then we have the
June
full
30th.
amount built in for next year. So it's 12 months and then 2 or 3 months this year.
Okay.
And then other than that, I didn't have anything else on this department. And then we were going to get into employee benefits, which is on page 47, which is going to probably take about 15 minutes if you can bear with us. And again, remember that this is the lion's share of the increase in administration and finance. Pensions are going up by just over 256, and medical benefits are going.
What page are we on?
Page 47. You have to get good at looking at
No.
this.
I know, I'm definitely sorry.
This is the last night we're going to help you.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Okay, I'm over. Yeah. Page 47, okay?
I gotta have one of these. They're just too far. I don't have time.
So be careful, they're gonna be a little melty.
Oh, they're
They're
very
a little
sweet.
healthy, they're really soft, so you need a napkin.
Oh, I won't have to talk to them.
Unless you guys have questions, Jim and I were going to focus on the larger accounts here. The first page is miscellaneous, and it's really going down slightly. This is where we pay for our professional development from. We pay for our health and wellness incentives, our health screening, and also a lot of the newsletters that we send out. We send out a wellness newsletter and so on. So this really hasn't changed too much. It stayed relatively constant. The next area that I wanted to talk about is on page 49, and this is medical benefits. And if you look at, let's see, page 20 and 21 in your handouts, I think it'll be a good accompaniment to this page. If you look at page 20, what we tried to do here, and Donna handles all of the accounting and analysis of the medical benefits account. But if you look at page 20, what you'll see is how much our general government appropriation has been over the last number of years. And the reason I did that is medical benefits and pension are continuing to grow and to occupy more and more of the general government budget. And I just wanted to see how much they've grown separately and how much of that general government budget they're occupying. So you can see what the appropriation has been for medical benefits over the last few years, and it's all over the board, and I'll explain to you why. You can see that the increases have ranged from a drop in 13-14 of 310,000 to an increase of 258,000 the next year, and I'll explain that. The percentage increases have been pretty much all over the board. But in terms of the aggregate total, you can see that as a percentage of the general government budget, it's generally been in the 10.5 on average % range. So it hasn't fluctuated too much. Now, two things have helped us keep the costs of our medical benefits down. One, the use of the trust fund. I wanted you to see how much we've used from the trust fund in each of the last 5 years. And then total reductions, and that represents other things that we've done to bring down the cost of the medical benefits. Either we've had rate changes late in the year after we brought the budget in, you've eliminated positions, and as a result, we've taken out corresponding medical benefit expenses. But in 2 years, we had two dramatic changes. One was 13-14, and one was 15-16. Over the course of the last few years, we went out and aggressively bid the program, and I think that was in 13-14. The other thing we did is we negotiated everyone out of the HMO and into the self-insured program, which probably saved us, I don't know, 10 to 15% per premium. It didn't make any sense for us, since we were advocates of self-insurance, to continue to maintain a fully insured program when we could self-insure and save a lot of money. And that, coupled with the bidding of the plan, saved us significant money. And we benefited from that over the course of a couple of years. And then the most recent thing we did was, and Vinnie spearheaded this, was we took our stop-loss insurance and moved it to CREC, which is the organization in Hartford, the Capital Region Education
And that has,
Research Center.
that has generated.
And that has generated savings too. We had a little bit of a blip this year. So that's why you see this crazy fluctuation in rates. So the only reason I show you this is because this is another decision package for you to look at. And if you look at the information I have on page 21, Donna gave me the trust fund balance as of 228, which is $1,381,000. Now, this doesn't include education. There's another 2.8 or something, okay? We project at the end of the year where we think we're going to be based on trends that we see, and she does 5 different scenarios, and then I take the average. So we, based on the scenarios that we looked at, estimate that we will probably have a balance of $1,189,994. Now, that's taking into account the fact that 4 of the last 5 months have been bad claims experience. This past month has been very good, and generally the spring is good. So this is probably a little conservative, but I think we can easily feel comfortable that we'll end the year with at least that much money. I used $150,000 of the trust fund to bring the cost down. So what that does is it leaves us with a net balance of just over $1 million. Now, our consultants go back and forth between recommending that we should have either 2 months of expected claims or 3 months of expected claims in the trust fund. So that's why I wanted you to see that. So I leave it to you as another discussion point to consider down the road. As you can see, the benefits of a decision unit, if you were to cut $100,000, what it would save in taxpayer dollars. And as we get another month out, it's very likely that our projection for the year-end balance in the trust fund could get better. But again, this is a decision that we want to come back to and discuss as there's the potential for further reduction here by use of the trust fund. There's also further reduction by use of rate reduction, which we're still waiting to hear back from our consultant on. Every month he comes back to us based on the previous month's experience to tell us how the rates have changed, okay? And we're looking right now at a rate adjustment that's probably in the 6% range, okay? And that's only because we had a bad experience for 4 months of this year and we wanted to be conservative. But we think that we were with the use of the 150 and we think that we can use more, but I'll leave that to a discussion with the council at another date.
To get to total reductions on page 20, how did you get to that? You got total reduction of 250,000 proposed.
Okay, good question.
Yeah, because that's, I just don't see how it add up.
Yeah, no, we have money in the VIVA, which is the Voluntary Employee Benefit Account for the police. The police pay into an account for their medical insurance. The problem is that that account has never been sufficient in recent years to pay the full cost of all of their medical benefits. These are the retirees. So it comes out of this account. And then what we do is we draw out $50,000 or $75,000, whatever we think we can afford to pull out from the VIVA. So the VIVA subsidizes this. So 150 is from the trust fund, 50 is from the VIVA. And then what happened is we got two very different rates from the consultant initially, where he was estimating a 1.5% increase, and then based on our expected claims, we were estimating about a 10% increase. And so we sat down and we made a judgment as to what we thought was the most realistic starting point we could go to based on these divergence of rates. And the reason there's a divergence is because he works from a gross number to a gross number. We work from a net number to a gross number. And so it's not the simplest thing to figure out what the likely increase would be, but
So the one you're guessing on is the 50,000.
Right, it's sort of, the increase was about $300,000, and we felt that we could probably take $50,000 out of that. So $50,000 is estimated rate increase. This is before we might have additional rate increases, 50 from the VIVA, 150 from the trust fund.
Okay.
And that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I overlooked it and didn't think to mention it. Okay. Next, we go to pension. And that is on the handouts, and it's on page 9.
53.
And 53 in your book. And I'll start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jim, because this represents another potential decision package for you. This, on page 9, what I wanted you to see is the 10-year history of the total cost of everything that go into the pension and retirement plan, okay? And there's 4 different components. There's the town pension plan, which really is the town and the board plan. There's the police plan. There's the deferred comp, and there's other. And the other consists of some payments that we have to make for various professional services, some GASB disclosure because of a retirement of a police officer who was granted 4 years additional service. Many years ago, we have to put in a separate payment for that, and so on. But the crux of it is the town, police, and deferred comp costs. And there's some interesting there's some interesting information here which I just want to point out to you. And not to get, too complicated, I just picked 13, 14 and came forward from 13, 14. Two things stand out. First of all, that the police pension plan grew from a contribution of 702,765 to 1,752,765 over that 5-year period. And it's actually 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 years. And the other unusual thing is that the deferred comp grew from $90,000 to $285,848. So those two have really been the cost drivers. And if you look over to the far right, you see that in 13, 14, pension and retirement benefits occupied about 6% of our general government budget, and they now occupy 9.4%. The thing that happened is that in 13, 14, we closed out all of our plans. And the problem with closing out a plan is you don't realize the savings for quite some time. And the other part of this was, in order to close out the plan, we had to enhance the benefit of the police pension plan. So two things happened. One, we had some increased benefits, which created a richer payout, which increased our liability. But the other problem is that we didn't have any new employees coming in and contributing to the pension plan. So the cash flow went down and the liability went up. Correspondingly, we put people in a deferred comp plan, and we are contributing to that.
Right. At least 6%.
And the money is going into their accounts. So that's why you see this unusual increase in both of these columns. Now, at some point, you're going to see the police plan start to come down and the deferred comp level off. But the problem with closing out a plan is just this: you don't realize the benefits for many, many years. But there's two positive elements. One of them is the fact that we did cap the police plan at 90%, and we aren't factoring in the benefits of that because we don't have an actuarial valuation yet to be able to see that. But that will have a pretty positive effect on the growth trajectory of the contributions. And the other thing is, and Jim will speak to this, we've had about a year and a half of really robust returns in our investments. And you had asked about this months ago. We had the material. I just forgot to present it at a council meeting, so we have it tonight. Jim will walk you through it. But the other thing I wanted to point out to you is, again, the opportunity for a decision to be made on the pension contribution.
Is that page 10?
No, it's in my, it's page, no, not page 10. It's page, I'll find it, it's with the police plan.
16?
That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, and then Jim will go back to the start. With the police plan, if you look, well, you can look at the decision package, and what it tells you is that we have the choice of picking options as to how we want to phase in our payment to reach our ARC, which is our required contribution level. We are now, if you look at page 17, using option D. And under option D, we are increasing the contribution by $300,000 annually, which will get us to our ARC by 2020-21. If the council were to take and cut this by $50,000, we would still be moving ahead to the ARC, but we wouldn't reach the ARC for about 3 more years beyond what we would reach at the $300,000 contribution. So there's no perfect way to do this. Obviously, I don't know that I'd suggest we go as far as B or A, but given the fact that we're expecting to see, our assets grow and our liabilities somewhat diminished by virtue of the 90% cap, I don't think it's such a risk if we were to decide to move from option B to option C. But again, that's just my opinion, and it doesn't extend out the time when we reach the arc by significant amounts, but it's just a thought and another option as we go forward. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jim, who's going to take you back to page 10 in the handouts, and then I think that'll get us pretty much through everything.
And
except
maybe
a
I'll
couple of
just kind of start where he ended off, but, you know, with the police plan right now, this year, we're contributing 1.452 million. And in this budget, the proposed budget, we're suggesting to go with the $300,000 increment, so that in fiscal '20, we'll finally be, in theory, where we need to be. But as Michael said, we just passed a contract with the police that hopefully will mitigate the increase in the liability. And also, and we're going to look at it in a minute, is the growth in the assets has been pretty robust recently. I think I just want to turn you back now to page
10, Jim?
Yeah. And we've been on that
that's
300,000 plan for
Yeah.
a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so,
Consistently.
yeah.
So on page 10, you know, this shows, I just think this is good information, the actuarial value of assets and the actuarially accrued liability over the last 5 years. Now keep in mind that the assets here, these are the actuarial value of assets. They don't correspond to the
Market rate.
market value, because these are smoothed over a 5-year period. The market gains and losses each year layer out 5 years. So,
So you don't have those spikes every year.
right. But I think what's interesting here, the town plan, we've been paying 100% now of our required contribution for several years. And you can see that the funded ratio is gradually increasing. Good things, rating agencies love to see that. The police plan, however, we haven't been funding to date at the actually required level. And until we do, I doubt you're going to see our funded ratio level off. And in fact, right now, it has been decreasing slightly over the last few years. Fire plan, funded ratio is increasing. The fire plan is a more recent plan, so there's a lot of past service costs in that haven't been funded because we haven't been funding that plan for a while. But it's a relatively small plan in the grand scheme of things. And they actually budget the contribution for that in the fire department. But, so I just a little background. And then on the next page, you know, our actuaries use a 7.5% rate of return assumption. And I just want to emphasize that for this 1-year return on our town and police plans, where we have the biggest chunk of our money, we had a 13%, 13.06% return for the 1 year, this past year, and 11.3% since inception of those plans. So overall, the assets have done really well. And I have to compliment the retirement board. I think, we have a really good core group there. These people, most of the people on that board do this for a living. And I even have trouble keeping up with them sometimes, but the investments here have gone from A to Z over the last decade. We're very, I think, risk averse at this point because we've, diversified our assets amongst many different managers with different styles, and also gotten more into, alternative investments. So just when the market's going down, not all of our investments are going down. We probably actually have some going up when the market downturns. So it's a well-oiled machine at this point.
Jim, when everything hit the fan,
Yeah.
back in '09, I guess.
08, 09, yeah.
And we sort of recalibrated, what were we, like an 8 3/4? And we were fully
We
funded?
were originally, and I don't know if I go way back, but we were at 8.5 for the longest time.
Okay, because I know we talked about
Yeah.
going below that.
And then we
7.5.
went down to 8.25, and then 8, and then I think finally down to 7.5. We were there's still, the last time.
7.5 is still pretty.
still pretty high.
Pretty high.
Yeah.
I-
But, you know, again, if you look on,
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why our liabilities grew so much over a
Right.
short period of time, because just a 0.5% change in the
Right.
interest rate made an incredible change
Right.
in our contribution to the plan, and that's not something I mentioned, but that happened
That's
over
why
the
we
last
shoot
6
ourselves
or
in the
7,
foot just
6 or
to-
7 years.
Pull $50,000 out of that 300,000. That doesn't make any sense.
you know, and this just might, so after my memo on page 11, if you, I guess it's page 13,
Fine print.
and it's the dark line closer to the bottom there, where we have the 72 million. So you can see
Oh, yeah.
the one-year return is 13.06%. The 3-year, 5.36. 5-year return is 6.97. So we're still a little short of that 7.5. If you go all the way over to the right, since inception, it's 11.3. But I have to admit, a lot of that was from the 80s and 90s.
Right.
That was when I was finance director.
Right. And we weren't even funding it.
But, you know, this...
We
this
didn't have to, because it was
Right,
overfunded.
Right.
It was like automatic pilot, we had one manager.
Right.
But I'm pretty optimistic that, you know, hopefully if the assets continue to grow, and I know we've had a little bit of a choppy market in the last couple of months, but...
So Jim, can we, is this what we're comparing? Is it the 64,685 to the 72,717? Is that the total asset growth over that 11 months?
I think you want to go the total, which is...
Yeah, because I know that's what Paul had asked, and that's what I'm curious about.
It's the 67,557, that's on page 15. That was last January.
Okay,
And then you
that's
can see
what we're looking
it's
at,
gone up
okay.
to 73, almost 74 million this December.
Okay, thank you. So it's, okay, thanks.
That includes all our, you know, cash and investments, so to speak. And then above that 74 million, we do have some other funds. You can see that right on the bottom of page 13. What we have invested in the Viva, 310,000. Firefighter plan is close to 2 million. And we have an OPEB plan with a little over 600,000 in right
It started out at 500,000.
now. It did.
Yeah.
We haven't been paying any benefits out of it. We're kind of paying the benefits on a pay-as-you-go basis. But that's kind of an oddball
Right.
situation.
Thanks to the dump.
Yeah. I think, Michael, that's...
Well, you wanted to show them 18 and
Oh,
19.
yes.
Those are the other two plans.
The other two plans, and again, on 18 and 19, this just shows you, you know, what our projected contributions are based on when they did this most recent valuation. This is excerpts from our July 1/17 valuation. And if you look at the town contributions column, which is the fourth one from the right, starts out with $1,788,342. That is for fiscal year 19, and that's what I budgeted. But you can see it's just going up marginally going forward. This is a closed plan, so you'll see that it caps out in a few years and then starts going down. But it's nowhere near where we were, because don't forget, just like the police plan, we were doing $150,000 increments to get our contributions up for this plan, but we did catch up several years ago, and now this is, you know, modest increases in the short term and then projected to decline. And then on page 19 is the firefighter plan. Firefighter plan is our only plan that is not a closed plan right now. And you can see employer contributions just have modest increases going forward indefinitely. There's a few blips at the bottom, and I'm not sure what that's all about. Focusing on
So
those.
who's covered by this firefighters plan?
This is the volunteer firefighters.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, it's not based on wages. There's a formula based on how much participation they have in actual fire costs and so forth.
They get points for different things, and that's how they qualify.
Did you want to talk about workers' comp and then just
Sure.
close it?
Yes. Workers' comp, which is on page,
Workers' comp.
50. Fifty in the, I call it the big book, the detail book.
Right.
So, I'm kind of embarrassed now after the 6% before, but this,
This one did go up.
Don't worry about
this,
it.
this did go up, and we did use
It
it.
was only on television.
This was a 6% increase that we use for projections, and that's again based on actuals this year. So that's kind of where I focus, but it just so happened that the appropriation and the actuals were pretty close in this case. There's a good chance that that's going to go down a pretty significant amount. We were recently quoted by CCM 3% increase, but I take that with a grain of salt because they use a payroll projection that's a year, dated a year. So instead of using this year's payroll, they use last year's audited payroll, and I have to factor that in. So I'd say it'd be more like a 4% would probably be more reasonable. But we're still working with them as well, and I hope to have more information again in a couple of weeks. We're still trying to get them to sharpen their pencil even more.
So you think the 17 may be high, 17,000 may be high? Increase?
We think it's
Yes,
gonna come down.
absolutely.
That and our property and casualty insurance, we think are gonna come down again. So we're gonna revisit those two, and we're gonna revisit the medical benefits to see if those rates come down also.
And then finally, heart and hypertension, that's this other.
It's a great way to have a meeting.
Yeah, it's not a good story. I put in a department request here, 522,000. That's kind of what we're projected to pay out at this point based on the claims we've been having this year. Michael's kind of going more or less with a status quo 350. I will say that, I just checked today and we have about 516,000 in cash in our heart and hypertension fund as of today. But I suspect by the end of this year, it could be another $100,000 to $150,000 down. We're paying about $40,000 a month out of that right now and change. So, there is going to be money to absorb the difference between what Michael recommended and what we think we're going to have to pay out.
What is that money?
I'm sorry.
What is that money?
Oh, it's a reserve.
Oh.
Yes, it's
a reserve.
It's a special revenue account that we draw out of.
Oh, okay.
And I've got to watch it very carefully because it's starting to get to a point where we might have to put more money in. The bottom line is, we've had a long-standing claimant who is responsible for probably 80% of this cost. And it's that one claimant. That's what we're paying for.
There's going to come a time when we have no more heart and
Right.
hypertension
Right.
liability, but it's
Well, it's been
a little
gone
bit
forever.
slow.
We've been really lucky that the most recent retirees have been relatively healthy,
Right.
or
Right.
if they had H&H, they settled, and that was the end of it. But this has been a long-standing nightmare for us because our exposure is unlimited. And the problem is that once you have it, any complications that you develop are tied back
Right.
to the heart and hypertension. And that's the case with this individual. This individual has a multitude of other problems.
Right, but they're all
And
part
the
of it.
doctor has decided that it's all related to the heart and hypertension. So you pay for things that are not at all related, but indirectly the doctor's made that call.
Yeah.
So we've been kind of rolling the dice on this one, but I haven't been successful, so I might have to revisit it and put some more money back in there someday, I don't know. But anyway, that's it for tonight.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you
your
for your
patience.
time and efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.